Now, can we have someone to say the opening prayer?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Father in heaven, we're so grateful for this day and for the many blessings that Thou's provided for us. We thank Thee for the opportunity we have to be able to attend school and to gather together to discuss our assignment. We ask that our eyes and our minds would be open to the things that the Spirit is trying to teach us, and that we'd be mindful of the thoughts of those in our group, and that we would have a good discussion. Please be with us as we go forth doing this. And I say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, to begin this off, we're going to be talking about the Army Crew team at the United States Military Academy. And it is quite interesting to find out that this coach, when he developed his varsity and junior varsity team, at first it looked like the varsity is going to do well because of physical and mental strength they have. But about, well, you've already read it. Throughout the whole thing, the varsity is starting to break apart and keep on losing to the junior varsity team every time. And the coach need to decide on the action to take in order to help his varsity team to reach their potential. That's just a quick overview of the whole case study. And what is the main issue in this case study?
The brat.
Which one, junior varsity or varsity?
Varsity.
Varsity, yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's absolutely no trust within the varsity team, and there's also no leadership. That's the biggest thing. So.
Yeah, and also a good example is the junior varsity was even. Okay. Look like I need to send another invite to him. Not Adam. How do you invite people again?
You go to add people and type his name and it'll send him an email.
Yeah, it's up on the top.
On the top.
Top left, I think.
Again, and then there we go. Oh, come on, answer. I'd send you that invite.
Teacher's assistant, so I get paid to like help students in the stats class. But she was in my one of them. She was in one of them. There's like 7 of us. This one guy's trying to get in, and he keeps making a new call instead of getting in.
They can't hear you?
Because I haven't. Oh.
I wonder why it's not letting him be invited in.
You can also post the link for the meeting on our group discussion board page in iLearn, and he can pick it up there.
Yeah.
Do you want me to text it? Well, let's see. I don't think I have his info for texting.
Let me send one more to him. Sorry about this. Um, just pretty much waiting for him right now. Anyway, we can do a little bit more talking while we wait for him. Another thing I want to bring up is that the coach also did a lot of the data gathering on the varsity team and all that, but he only focused mainly on the strength and the quality of the individual. You think it may be some of the coach's fault for not unifying the team?
Well, West Point is known for being a military leadership academy, and so, hey, Austin.
Hey, Austin.
So,
Hey, sorry, guys.
so they're in the, I told this to Stephanie, we were talking about this last night. I was like, they're in the business of making leaders. You know, those are people who are going to go on to be officers in the military. And so I guess he, in a way, is just kind of assuming like, well, these guys are here at West Point, so maybe they do have those qualities and those abilities, and that would hopefully come through in his team as he's picking them. So
I think he relied too heavily on the data and didn't dive in deep enough to the personalities and how the personalities were going to jive with each other. I think that he just went off numbers.
That's true.
That's what I said. He focused all on the physical. He didn't
yeah,
go into the psychological. And that showed the kind of coach he is, because at the beginning it explained the novice, intermediate, and the master coach. And he was actually intermediate coach.
And he, there's a lot that he could have done with their attitude if he had just earlier. You know, whether you're doing press training or you know, they're having to do things together. It's more about fixing attitudes. It made me think about being a mom and having like the older kid saying, well, I'm in charge because mom's not home and you're just going to do this because I say, and it's like all 8 of them are doing that.
Yeah, another big issue I think is part of the team, because in military school, even though they train to be leaders, but the basic of the basic had to be working as a team first before, because in the military they emphasize a lot on teamwork as well, especially in a battlefield situation.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, like we mentioned, they were lacking a strong leader, and I don't think that the coach.
Class, I wanted to talk to you about your projects, your accountability projects.
I thought the teacher was going to join.
Okay. I was going to say, I think that they were lacking that strong leadership, and no one on the team stepped up, and the coach didn't intervene to say, hey, enough is enough. He should have done that at the very beginning and said that he saw issues, but he chose to hope that they would resolve themselves, and it just got worse. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also another thing I'm going to point out is the coach could easily, he already gathered these data early on in the season, so he could easily make changes from the junior and varsity team in order to improve these things on the attribute on them. But since he put it off thinking, oh, they can get over themselves and work as a team, it didn't really help. It really didn't help him at all. And now he's at the last week, like trying to make changes at the last minute.
Yeah. Too little, too late.
Yeah. I said this season he has to just finish it out, learn from what his mistakes were, and then try to improve next season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I put in mind as well.
For mine, I put is he should take the junior varsity to the championship instead of the varsity, because they prove a lot more unity than the varsity team. Even though it was sucks for them for not be able to participate, it could be a good lesson for both of them.
I think it would be an interesting lesson for them as the varsity team to go and compete and lose, and that smackdown of their ego, you know, to say, look, you're not what you think you are. And that may be a better long-term effect for them than just the coach putting them down. They may still think, oh, well, if we had been there, we would have won. I think they needed to see that they were going to lose.
Yeah, agreed. And also could show them as well that how well the junior varsity team did in that championship as well.
I think they already recognize that. You know, I mean, they're losing to their JV team on a regular basis. It says that they're just completely deflated. You know, I don't necessarily think it's a thing of ego at this point because they've totally been beaten. I think that they're just thinking, I think they just lack trust for each other, and they don't have. Yeah, I think if they had egos, that's been kind of beat out of them already.
Well, I think something to go along with trust from the case, it talked about how like having trust in your teammates is trusting that there is no, I guess, like weakest link in your boat, but that the weakest link is in the other boat. And when he read through their emails, they were specifically calling out each other, saying they're not doing anything, indicating that trust doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But their ego came in that training. I can't remember the initials now. The training, they thought it was wishy-washy. They were too good for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
touchy-feely. Mm-hmm.
Well, and also to go along with what Austin said about the lack of trust and like trusting that the person was going to do what they're supposed to do, I think also their ego comes out when they're saying, well, that group meeting that they had at the very end of the discussion where they said, well, no, I'm the one carrying the team. And then they're all like trying to take all the glory for themselves. So,
Yeah. And also, as you notice as well, like if they do individual or two-man team at the beginning of the case study, that they were outperforming the JV no matter what, but only when they are put together, then they suck.
Yeah.
So that should have been some sign to the coach that they can work well by themselves, but as a team, they need better improvement.
well, and something else I put in my thing is when you're at West Point, my uncle works there and he attended there, but you're also broken down into squads within what you're doing and how you're living. And, you know, it might have been a good idea for him to go and the coach to go talk to some of those squad leaders to see how those guys are faring when they're working in a different group situation, because they do have to work and live together and be accountable to each other there as well.
That's very true.
Well, and at West Point, you're like you were saying, they're training, you know, the best of the best people there. And, you know, something that I find interesting, specifically when we think about the apostles, is these are very powerful men. They've been the most prestigious businessmen and those kinds of things, that they carry all of these very competitive, aggressive qualities, but they're also very humble men. And so I think it shows that it's difficult to have both that aggressive competitiveness and be a humble person that is going to, you know, sit back and let someone else tell them what to do.
This reminds me a lot of from the gospel, the pride cycle of these kids. It's like they were so hard-hearted and trying to work as a team that in the very end, it just totally destroyed them. They just started off bickering a little, and now in the case study at the very end, they were so gun-ho, cutthroating each other.
Yeah.
Did we lose someone?
He's back.
Howdy.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's just, I think some of the
That
prompting
one
that
part.
the coach had puts each other to excellent, but I think he said taken that as a warning to him. It's like, oh, there might be contention in this group.
Yeah.
You talked about mixing them up. Austin left too. You talked about mixing them up, and they would do fine, but it said there was something about the way they functioned as a team of 8 rowers that made the whole less than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
Yep. Coach P had the right measurement in place, though, because he did try to attempt to ease the complaint to each other, trying to give them good thoughts, try to have them talk with one another. But do you think that was enough, or should he take those signs and decide another course of path?
A little too late, I think.
I think he could have done more in that area, away from rowing, away from everything, more along the lines of make them go work together. You know, if they all had to plant a tree together, if they all had to do another activity that wasn't rowing related, that was a teamwork activity. Didn't involve talking, but maybe they could see that it was about the interacting with each other. I don't know, maybe, but it just seems like there was some other activities he could have added.
Darcy, I agree with you. I said that they should have done some team building at the very beginning. And I find that kind of funny because my daughter plays volleyball and they always do these team building experiences. And I'm like, really? Really? But I guess there is some point in doing them.
I agree. Even though at the end it was too little too late, during that time, I think he could easily did some, like what Darcy said, he could have done something more. He could have, and not only if it's just trying to be more unified, but maybe try to switch the varsity and junior varsity up to see if something can work out as well.
Right.
No, I didn't say in the case study, but it would be interesting to know if he had any set expectations that he explained to the team before the season started.
Oh,
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, he done this several, and also he'd been doing it for several years and all that. And I think with his knowledge and experience, he should have been able to recognize these issues very quickly.
One other thing I thought was interesting from the case, it talks about how he's noticing that there's no unity with the team, but it never indicates that he's sharing that with his athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He, I know in the reading it says he assumes that they will work as a team too, because Tabitha said they had to live together and all that, so he probably already think that they know what unity means and how to work together on these issues.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit telling too when the coach asked the team, both the JV and varsity, to email one another, and the JV team did it, but the varsity team emailed him to complain about each other. They didn't follow directions.
Yep.
Well, he said, if you have team building things, email each other. If you have complaints, email me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that's one thing I love about the BYU Idaho and the classes. We have these groups, we work as teams, but it's not unless there's an absolute problem, do we go to the instructor? And it makes it possible to do all this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And also, it's a good strategy to try, but if they're not willing to do it, it's almost like you have to take another approach to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what measurements should be removed from this case study examples? For one thing, I think he should remove some of the individual measurement for his first week of training, because he was so focused on individual outstanding performance that he didn't put a lot of emphasis on teamwork.
But that worked for 8 other years.
He had a special group.
That may be true.
We all
But at
have
the
that
same-
one kid, right?
Well, I
Except
just
me, I have 4 kids like that.
I think that there is some truth to that, though. I think that there comes a time where people, certain teams, they just don't gel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that there needs to be a different approach. Just because he had all this experience doesn't make his way solid. You know, I've got children who absolutely run outside of the box. There's just no way they're going to get a concept, no matter how much I drill it into them. Obviously, he needed to try a different tactic, and he wasn't willing to admit that early enough.
yeah, and also like for me, I think he should have added more team workout together too during that week of training, to if not just to see overview if they can get along with each other.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I gotta bow out here.
Okay.
Got it timed at lunch, but I'll
Have
watch the rest of the recording later.
Okay, thank you for trying to be here.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Done.
Next one. Why would the data success performance yet not match the actual result of the collected team?
Can you say that one more time, please?
Why would the data success performance yet not match the actual result of the collected team?
Because
I think
I don't think he was taking into account anything but physical performance in his data, and I don't think he should have eliminated any of his physical data, but I think that he maybe needed to rank some psychological data up in there to give him a more well-rounded score.
You know, it said that he put the top 8 on varsity, the bottom 8 on JV. Perhaps he could have not done that immediately and worked with different combinations to see, even if you're in the bottom 8, maybe you perform better when you're with certain people in a different boat. I think that he was very quick to say, you're my top 8, you're my bottom 8, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that, because that may seem to work at the first, but over the course it could always change. That one thing I have noticed for myself in work field and in sports, that people who were first strings sometimes later on become second string and stay there because they couldn't perform at that level as some of the other people did to prove themselves.
Yeah.
True.
I think another thing that I think the coach really needed is a couple more people from the outside source to help him to see if he might have been overlooking some of the things. Because in the reading, I noticed that he got one of the advisors to working as a group to help him with these things, but it doesn't seem like they really communicated with each other.
Yeah.
Well, something I just thought about that I hadn't thought about before is that he didn't ever factor in how they would deal under pressure. Because it seemed like, it being individual, their scores were great and all that, but when they were competing is when they were losing. And I know that my oldest did track, and he did the team, the 4x8, and the when it's huge when you put those kids together, but there's more factors than just how fast you are or how strong you were. It's how they're going to perform under pressure, and I don't know that he ever measured any of that.
Yeah, I can see that, how that works out with this. And also, I think another problem the coach had, he didn't really set someone as a team leader to handle the internal issues, because sometimes the coach cannot always be there for the team to work out little things. And that what the team leader is supposed to do is to work out with each other. But he never said any one of them to be the actual team leader.
Ooh.
Especially at the school, because usually in a group or in a squad, there's always a leader helping, giving out order, and making certain that everything works properly as well.
I think too, once the varsity started losing and they became more and more frustrated, it was easy to start pointing fingers and picking and saying, you know what, it's his fault, it's his fault, it's his fault. But in contrast, the JV team, they had nothing to lose. So they just went out there and they had good attitudes about it. And once the first time they won, they're like, hey, we can do this. We can do it again and again and again. Where the varsity just got more and more frustrated by the whole situation. And with the lack of leadership, they imploded.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What changes, if any, should Coach P take to rectify the situation for the coming final? Like, what path should he have taken to mix them up, or keep them the same, or take the other team over the other one?
So one of the answers that I put was to take the JV team, but just to take a couple of the varsity rowers, because in the thing it said that whenever he put a couple of the varsity guys on the JV boat, then they won by an even further margin. And so one of my solutions was to take most of the JV team and then just take a couple guys from the varsity to compete.
I just put that he should switch the two teams for this race, because he can't fix these problems really quick. They're going to be kind of a long-term fix. And so I said I'd switch the teams, and then once the varsity can get these problems worked out, then he can put them back in their spot. Or if they ever work them out, who knows? Maybe the JV will stay better than them the whole time.
I agree with that, because especially near the end, they're saying that they're not willing to want to switch or mix up with the varsity team, because by then, like, the junior varsity is doing so much better, and they have so much trust with each other that they don't want to break that chemistry, that teamwork.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of animosity from the varsity to the JV as well. They don't want to have to go and sit in a boat with people that don't like them.
Well, in all actuality, too, the JV did the work, and they actually deserved to win the race. They did. And they have the right attitude and everything. So them winning, they've actually earned it.
Yeah, it's very true. And I like how in the case study that they tell which part is so important for a team of 8 to work together: teamwork, individual strength, and psychology. And like we all have been pointing out, that the psychology in this case was the most crucial that the coach look over.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we apply all these things to the gospel into our own lives? Just reading about this and just looking from my past experience, it helped me to understand a lot better why you have to try to be able to trust each other, even though everyone have their own strength or their own weakness. But that trust is the one that really binds everything.
Well, it's also important. You can see how important it is to be humble and to remain that way, because you can't come into a situation and be, critiqued, and whatever, if it's a calling or, somebody's offended or something like that. People can't approach you to talk to you about things like that if you're, you don't remain humble too. So.
I agree. This Sunday, our stake is getting boundary changes, and there's a whole lot of very upset people. But they haven't heard from the stake presidency why the changes are happening or where they're changing. And I think a lot of that goes back to our own attitude. Are we willing to put our trust in our leaders and understand where they're coming from and trust in the process? And I don't think the JV was willing to trust in the process. I'm sorry, the varsity was willing to trust in the process. And I think that directly relates to us in our lives and the gospel. Are we willing to trust in the process and move forward, or are we going to stay there and cause contention?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Changes is always going to happen to everyone, no matter what we try to do or try to stay the same. Changes is happening. It's just, can we really put that trust or that faith into those changes? Because who knows? Like, I have more boundaries split up on me so many times that sometimes I can go with the flow and actually meet new people and become more friends with them, and then I'm just saying the same throughout the whole same people without expanding out of knowing my other brother and sister.
Well, and it's like the JV not willing to go with the varsity and the varsity not willing to go with JV. They could have become a stronger team if they would have been willing to have an open mind and be willing to share their talents with each other.
Well, and it makes me think about when bishops are released. One Sunday they're up there on the pulpit, the one in charge of the whole ward, and the next Sunday they could be in with the 11-year-old, boys in primary trying to rope everybody into the same row.
And I think they should.
Right. Yeah. But there's no glory in what you're doing. It's, all in the kingdom of God, all serving. And that's where that humbleness comes in.
Well, so do you think that their original rankings, and that because the coach put them, okay, here's my top 8 year varsity, and because he didn't make it a fluid type of ranking, that set them in their attitudes? Should he have just not ranked them right off the bat?
I think he should have waited.
Yeah, I think by him ranking them right out of the gate like that, the varsity probably had a little bit of a superiority complex, and thought, you know what, we're way better than the JV. And then that thought process, once they started losing, it just made it that much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed.
They definitely epitomized the phrase "there's no I in team." It was very much a team made up of I, me, and it wasn't a cohesive grouping of we are the team. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think, like, who mentioned it, that there was no set leader. He didn't give one person to be in charge. I think it shows the importance of having a very specific person in charge, because if not, everyone fights to be that person, and then they're mad at everybody for not knowing that they are.
You know, and I've never rode before, but it's my understanding just from observing it that the coxswain, is that how you say it? That's the person who's in charge, who is, you know, everyone else is the muscle, and they're the ones saying, here, make this adjustment. Okay, we need to do this. Okay, speed it up, slow it down. Okay, they're the one who's supposed to be in charge. And it seems like the person that he had in that position was not strong enough to overcome the ego of the boat.
Or maybe he didn't define that, okay, if there's problems, you have to work it out with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It also mentioned that some of the, in the case study too, that some of the JVs, even though they're not as skillful, but they're very good with the cost swing or how to change the direction of the boat needed to be too. Mm-hmm. So I think the coach overlooked some of those things as well for himself.
Yeah.
Also, another thing I just very thought of is also willing to forgive those people their weaknesses too. Mm-hmm. They're so pointing at each other, and this reminds me of experience of people pointing their fingers at some bishoprics that was in my ward about their weakness and their falling, and how they saying that the bishop had to be like this way and that, but people, everyone have weaknesses and, you know, fall short. And we must be willing to learn to overcome it and also overlook other people's weakness, because we have our own weakness as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Austin, you still awake?
So overall, what do you think?
Just checking.
Hello?
Hello?
Sorry, I've been fighting with my internet all day, so I'm sitting trying to play with and figure out how to get it to work faster.
I'm not getting any voice now.
Can you not hear us, Garrett?
Can you guys hear me?
Uh-huh.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Because I cannot hear any of you at all now.
We lost you. Uh-oh. Are you there?
What the?
I think it's only him that can't hear us.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
That's weird.
Okay, that is just weird.
Can you hear us yet?
I'm not getting any voices, so what?
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hey.
That was weird. All of a sudden, I just couldn't get any volume or hear you guys.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So what principle, if any, lesson reading applies to this case? No, we can't do that. Well, that's pretty much the whole case.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Do you have the answer for what he actually ended up doing?
Yeah, I have it here. And we kind of mix almost everything into one. Because we talk about the behavior, what is important, what is the issue. Also, dealing with the coach on his measurement, what need to be added or take away. And what any changes is supposed to be applied. And then we already add gospel to it. So we still got another 20 minutes.
So I looked it up, and it looks like I think this is what he did because it was on CNN Money. That I think he had them all wrestle each other for 90 seconds, no punching, and there were no clear winners. And then they switched opponents, and then by the time it was done, it was just like an all-out brawl with all of them. And then then one of the team members said, "Okay, coach, can we just go row now?" And so there was no problem after that.
See, that is awesome. That's great for you right there.
So, and all I could think of in this was, have you guys ever seen Major Payne?
Yeah.
When he has all the kids like buried in the dirt and he's like spraying them with the hose or whatever, I'm like, just go do that. Like, be done with it, you know?
That is exactly, as I read this, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, they just need a mom to come in and knock their heads together and shove them on their way.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think in this case study, the coach really, even though he did little bit stuff to try to help, he really didn't take any good action or straightforward action.
Mm-hmm.
He just assumed that they will work together, that they will actually be unified on their own.
Yep.
Yep.
It takes a leader to do that. So, to help with that.
So, well, then I'm going to end this progress then. We're a little bit earlier, but we kind of went over every little thing
Yeah,
that we
we did.
needed to.
I think so.
Okay,
Okay.
here we go.